Have you ever walked into a room and felt instantly out of place, like the world around you is moving in slow motion, while you're awake to something entirely different, something they can't even see? You feel the energy, the unspoken tensions, the invisible currents beneath every conversation. It's unsettling, confusing, even frustrating at times, but it's not a mistake or a flaw. It's proof that your awareness has expanded beyond the ordinary, and that expansion comes with consequences that most people never understand. Today, we're going to uncover why spiritual people no longer fit in anywhere, why this alienation is actually the beginning of a profound awakening, and how this realization can completely transform the way you move through life. By the end of this video, you won't just understand why you feel out of place. You'll see why it's the first sign that you're on a path few ever reach, and why this discomfort is actually your greatest advantage. But before we go there, there's something you need to notice about the way the world reacts to people who wake up. It begins subtly. You don't notice it at first. The jokes don't land the same way. The conversations feel shallow. The routines everyone else seems to enjoy now feel heavy. And at first, you try to force yourself back into alignment. You laugh when you don't feel like laughing. You participate when your energy is screaming to withdraw. But the moment you stop pretending, even slightly, you notice the shift. People sense it. They see the difference in your energy, your clarity, your calm detachment, and some of them react in ways you weren't expecting. They avoid you. They challenge you. They make subtle digs that at first seem innocent, but slowly you realize these are tests or attempts to pull you back into the comfort zone of ordinary life. They don't yet understand that your awareness has already moved ahead, and they don't know how to respond. And the truth is, this is just the beginning of a series of revelations that will make you question everything you thought about connection and belonging. Because as your awareness grows, you start noticing patterns that others completely miss. You see the hidden motivations behind small interactions. You recognize energy leaks in conversations, subtle manipulations, and unspoken resentments that everyone else chooses to ignore. Suddenly, the social norms that used to feel natural now feel suffocating. Small talk becomes unbearable. Surface-level relationships feel shallow, and environments that were once familiar start to feel alien. The irony is that these moments of disconnection aren't accidental. They're mirrors showing you the limits of ordinary perception and hinting at the next stage of your evolution. But here's the twist. The more awake you become, the lonelier you feel, and it isn't just physical isolation, it's emotional and mental isolation, a kind of solitude that forces you to confront something most people never even consider. You begin to realize that your mind and your perception are no longer compatible with the collective rhythm of ordinary life. You're tuned to frequencies that others can't reach. And as this happens, the sense of alienation grows. Friends you once connected with feel distant. Conversations you once loved feel like repetition. Even familiar places start to feel different, as if you've stepped into a parallel reality where everyone else is asleep and you are suddenly awake. It's unsettling. And at first it feels like a curse. You wonder if there's something wrong with you, if you're broken or abnormal. But the reality is far more profound. You're evolving faster than the world around you. You're moving into spaces that no one else can access yet. And that's exactly why you feel displaced. And in this feeling of displacement lies the first secret most spiritual people never discover. The secret that will shift your entire perspective if you can see it clearly. You notice something else too. People begin to push back against your awareness, even if it's subtle. They might tease you, challenge your ideas, or question your choices. Sometimes it's conscious, often it's unconscious, but either way it's a reflection of their discomfort with the clarity you now carry. They see a truth they cannot face, and in response they attempt to dilute it, distract you, or pull you back into what they perceive as normal. And here's the fascinating part. The very discomfort they project is actually a sign that you are moving in the right direction. Every subtle push, every misplaced criticism, every attempt to confuse or provoke you is actually a confirmation that your frequency has surpassed the collective average. But the lesson is not easy, and this is where many spiritual people get stuck. Most don't recognize that this resistance isn't personal, it's a natural response to clarity. And the moment you understand that, everything begins to shift. The next realization hits harder. You notice that trying to force yourself to fit in becomes exhausting. You start protecting your energy, filtering out meaningless interactions, and carefully choosing where to spend your time and attention. This filtering process feels lonely at first, almost brutal, because it forces you to let go of people and spaces that were once familiar and comforting. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to see the reward. Your energy is no longer drained by unnecessary interactions. You start to notice the subtle currents of life that align with your awareness, the conversations that feel effortless, the people who resonate on a level deeper than words. And with this comes a shift that few ever experience, a moment when you realize that isolation was never punishment, it was preparation. It was teaching you discernment, patience, and the ability to recognize alignment when it finally arrives. Yet even in this clarity, there is another twist waiting, something deeper than just filtering energy. You start to notice patterns that go beyond people. Life itself begins to reveal its subtle teachings. You see how situations repeat until the lesson is fully integrated. You recognize cycles of challenge and opportunity, and you begin to anticipate outcomes based on energy rather than logic. You realize that discomfort, disconnection, and even conflict are not obstacles, they are accelerants for growth. And the deeper you go into this understanding, the more your world begins to feel like a puzzle you can solve, not with force, not with resistance, but with clarity and observation. Yet the most powerful insight comes not from understanding life, but from understanding yourself. And that insight is more shocking than you can imagine. You realize that fitting in was never your path. Trying to belong to spaces that don't honor your awareness is like trying to pour water into a cup that isn't shaped for it. It's messy, frustrating, and ultimately futile. And the more awake you become, the more this becomes obvious. Yet paradoxically, this doesn't leave you without connection. Instead, it opens the door to the rarest, most meaningful forms of connection, relationships, communities, and opportunities that match your frequency. They don't need to explain themselves, they don't need validation, and they resonate naturally with your awareness. But the twist is this: finding these connections requires letting go of almost everything else, the familiar, the easy, the safe. And letting go is never simple. There's also a deeper truth about solitude. The moments when you feel most alone, most misunderstood, are the moments when your inner strength grows fastest. In these spaces, your awareness sharpens, your clarity deepens, and your discernment becomes unshakable. You begin to trust your own energy more than anyone else's opinions. And in that trust, a quiet power emerges, a power invisible to those who chase validation, recognition, or approval. The irony is that the very isolation you feared is exactly what positions you for influence, insight, and authenticity that most people will never access. But if you think this is the end of the story, you're about to see the next layer, one that changes everything about how you view belonging. You realize that the world doesn't need you to conform. It doesn't need your approval, your validation, or your participation in ordinary patterns. It only needs you to evolve, to remain conscious, and to carry your awareness forward. And the higher you rise in consciousness, the more obvious this becomes. You stop resisting, you stop explaining, and you stop shrinking. You embrace the solitude, the discernment, and the heightened perception as your greatest tools. And here's the final twist. The very sense of not fitting in transforms into a new kind of belonging, one that is internal, deliberate, and aligned with your truth. You are no longer seeking permission to exist. You are creating your own frequency, your own spaces, your own tribe. And in this shift, life begins to reward you in ways that are subtle yet profound. So here's what matters most. Not fitting in is not a flaw, a mistake, or a problem to fix. It's a signal, a confirmation that your awareness has expanded beyond ordinary perception, and that your energy can no longer be diluted by the familiar patterns of life. The loneliness you feel is temporary, a stage of refinement that prepares you for deeper connection, clarity, and power. Your next step is to honor your awareness, protect your energy, and trust the process of filtering everything that doesn't align. Notice the subtle shifts, the people, and the experiences that resonate naturally. When you do this, the sense of being out of place transforms into a quiet certainty that you are moving toward alignment, mastery, and relationships that honor the depth of your consciousness. Remember, the path of spiritual awakening is never about fitting in. It's about evolving, discerning, and finally finding your true frequency. The discomfort, the isolation, and the alienation are the very tools that guide you to your next evolution. When you embrace them, when you trust yourself over the world's validation, you step into a life that is rich, rare, and fully aligned with who you are. And in that alignment, you will discover the real power that comes from being awake while the world sleeps.